Have you ever imagined being on a plane when the pilot suddenly collapses mid-flight, and no one knows what to do? Just when panic takes over, a mysterious woman who had been missing for 7 long years walks into the cockpit, and changes everything. Stay with me until the end of this story, because the truth behind her disappearance will leave you stunned. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner so you never miss stories that touch your heart and open your eyes. It was an early evening flight from Dubai to London, filled with families, business travelers, and students heading back after their summer holidays. The sky outside was painted with golden clouds, and inside, the usual buzz of conversation and clinking cups filled the cabin. Among the passengers was Daniel Ross, a 42-year-old father traveling with his 10-year-old daughter, Emma. Daniel was not a frequent flyer, his palms always sweated during takeoff, but Emma loved it. She pressed her nose against the window, whispering, "Look, Daddy, we're flying above the sun." The first half of the flight went smoothly. Flight attendants served meals, people scrolled through their screens, and Emma giggled at cartoons. Then, without warning, something happened that changed everything. A sudden announcement crackled over the intercom, but the voice wasn't steady. It was trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen, we request that any medically trained passenger please come forward to the cockpit immediately. This is an urgent request." The cabin fell into silence. Some people glanced around nervously, others froze with spoons halfway to their mouths. Daniel's heart began pounding. He looked at Emma, who had sensed something was wrong. "What's happening, Daddy?" she whispered. "I'm not sure, sweetheart." Moments later, 2 flight attendants rushed past, faces pale. A murmur spread among passengers like wildfire. The pilot, something had happened to the pilot. Within minutes, the rumors were confirmed. The captain had collapsed midair. Though the co-pilot was trying to keep control, the situation was tense, especially since they were flying over the Mediterranean, hours from landing. The co-pilot's voice came through the speakers again, this time calm but heavy. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Our captain has suffered a medical emergency. I am currently in command of this aircraft. We will be attempting an emergency landing at the nearest airport. Please stay calm." The plane shook slightly, not because of turbulence, but because of the fear that gripped everyone inside. Mothers clutched their children, businessmen stared wide-eyed at their laptops, and Daniel squeezed Emma's hand so tight his knuckles turned white. But then, something completely unexpected happened. From the middle rows, a woman in her mid-30s stood up. She had been quiet the whole flight, sitting alone with a simple black scarf draped over her head, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Her features were partly hidden, but when the light hit her face, passengers noticed sharp cheekbones and piercing green eyes. She walked with a kind of calm authority, unlike the panic consuming everyone else. "I need to go to the cockpit," she told the flight attendant firmly. The attendant, startled, stammered, "Ma'am, please return to your seat. This is a critical situation." The woman leaned closer, her voice low but steady, "Trust me. I can fly this plane." Those words fell like thunder in the cabin. Passengers gasped. Someone muttered, "Is she crazy?" Another whispered, "She said she can fly." The flight attendant hesitated, torn between protocol and the urgency of the moment. But something in the woman's eyes, an intensity, a quiet confidence, forced her to listen. Within seconds, the mysterious passenger was escorted toward the cockpit. Daniel stared, frozen. There was something familiar about that woman, though he couldn't place it. But Emma tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, isn't that Aunt Claire?" Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't heard that name in years. Claire, his sister. Missing for 7 years. Back in 2015, Claire Ross had been one of the youngest and brightest pilots in Europe. She had trained under some of the best, earning her wings at just 25. But then, during a routine cargo flight, something went wrong. The plane was forced into an emergency landing in a remote area. Authorities found the wreckage, but not Claire. For months, search teams combed through the wilderness. Nothing. The official report eventually declared her dead. The Ross family mourned her, buried an empty coffin, and tried to move on. But now, here she was. On this plane. 7 years later. Daniel's throat went dry. "It can't be," he muttered. But Emma's eyes were locked on the woman, and she whispered again, "It's Aunt Claire." "I know it is." Inside the cockpit, the co-pilot was fighting to keep control, sweat pouring down his face as he tried to reroute the plane to Athens. He turned in shock when the mysterious woman entered. "Who are you?" "You can't be here," he barked. "I'm Captain Claire Ross, former first officer for British Airways," she said, her voice sharp and professional. "Let me help you." The co-pilot froze. The name hit him like a strike. Claire Ross. That's impossible. You're supposed to be dead. I know. But I'm not. Right now, your captain is unconscious, and you're running solo with 200 lives depending on you. Trust me or don't, but if you want us to land safely, step aside. The weight of her words filled the cockpit. The co-pilot looked at her, at the hands that gripped the controls with practiced familiarity, and for a moment, his instincts warred with logic. Then he nodded. Together, they steadied the aircraft. Back in the cabin, people felt the shift. The plane, which had wobbled uncertainly moments ago, was now flying smoothly again. Fear began to lift, replaced by whispered questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why now, after all these years? Daniel couldn't stop trembling. His sister was alive. Alive, and flying the plane that carried his daughter. His mind flooded with memories, her laugh, her stubbornness, the day she disappeared. Why had she never come back? Why reveal herself only now? And yet, as the engines hummed steadily, relief washed over him. Whatever the truth was, she was saving them. Claire adjusted the controls, communicating with air traffic control, her voice calm and precise. To the outside world, she was just a skilled pilot handling an emergency. But to Daniel and Emma, she was a ghost returned from the dead. The question remained, where had she been for 7 years? And what secret was she still hiding? The passengers held their breath as the plane descended toward Athens. Inside the cockpit, Claire's hands moved with steady confidence, adjusting levers and reading instruments as if she had never been away from the skies. The co-pilot, still in disbelief, followed her lead. The storm of panic in the cabin slowly quieted as the plane stabilized. But Daniel's mind was in turmoil. His sister, whom he had mourned, whose picture he had kissed at her empty grave, was alive, standing only a few feet away. And she wasn't just alive. She was the only reason the 200 souls on board weren't spiraling toward disaster. When the wheels finally screeched against the runway and the plane rolled to a safe stop, the cabin erupted in applause and sobs of relief. The co-pilot announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have landed safely in Athens. Thanks to the bravery and skill of Captain Claire Ross." Gasps echoed through the plane. For many, the name meant nothing. But for Daniel and Emma, it meant everything. Emma burst into tears, clapping harder than anyone else. Minutes later, Claire stepped out of the cockpit. The sight of her left the passengers stunned. Her scarf had slipped back, revealing a face marked by time and hardship. But her eyes, those green eyes, had never changed. Daniel stood, trembling. Claire. Her gaze locked on him, and for the first time in 7 years, her lips trembled. Danny. The reunion was almost too much to bear. Emma flung herself into her aunt's arms, sobbing, "I knew it was you. I told Daddy." Daniel, with tears streaking down his face, finally held the sister he thought he'd lost forever. But as the flood of emotion poured, Claire's voice lowered. "I can't stay long. Confused, Daniel pulled back. What do you mean? You've been gone 7 years. Where were you? Her eyes darkened, filled with secrets too heavy to speak. After the crash, I was found, not by rescue teams, but by people who didn't want me to return. I survived, but under conditions I can't explain here. All I can tell you is, I had to disappear to protect you. To protect everyone I loved. Daniel shook his head, trying to process her words, but before he could speak, uniformed officials entered the plane. Their eyes immediately fell on Claire. She stiffened. They know I'm back, she whispered. And that means I don't have much time. She kissed Emma's forehead, hugged Daniel one last time, and whispered, remember this, sometimes the truth is too dangerous. But love always survives. Then, just as quickly as she had reappeared, Claire slipped away with the officials, leaving passengers stunned and her family shattered between joy and grief. Daniel held Emma close as they watched her vanish again. His daughter whispered through tears, will we see her again? Daniel's voice cracked. I don't know, sweetheart. But today, she saved us. And in that moment, everyone on that plane knew, sometimes heroes don't stay, but their courage leaves a mark forever. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner for more heart-stirring stories that remind us of courage, sacrifice, and the power of love.